Well, welcome to chapter 6. It's about culture, and culture is my favorite topic. I really like it, and I use this as a demonstration. It's a rubber band ball, and I don't like to start my presentations with quotes, but I'm going to quote myself. Each of us is, in essence, like a rubber band ball. Culture is developed as if adding one rubber band to another. Some rubber bands are wide and comforting, some are thin, tight, and painful, with a variety of sizes in between adding to the construction. Each new rubber band changes the mass density and dimensions of the ball and how it will react to outside stimuli, just as the layers of culture will change how we as humans react to situations. Now, I came up with that idea when I was tasked with doing a self-evaluation. And during that, I read some stuff by some authors named Sue Arredondo and Mac Davis. And they listed 3 areas of culture that they call them A, B, and C, but I like to call them given, social, and events. Given are the ones that you were born with, the traits that you were born with. You were born a specific hair color, eye color, into a certain family, into a certain socioeconomic status, probably into a certain cultural, religious culture, certain part of the country, certain country in the world. You know, those you have no control over. The social ones, they're the ones that you create by picking your friends and picking your career field and picking your hobbies and that type of stuff. And events are major world events that change us. Some of you may remember 9/11. Many of you don't. You heard about it, read it in the textbooks. That was like me about Pearl Harbor. I didn't remember that, but I'm not that old, okay? But it was an event in my mom and dad's time. An event in my time was John F. Kennedy's assassination. So these things combine to create the person that you are. And communication is key to its development. You wouldn't know how to say the prayers that your parents taught you if it wasn't for communication. You wouldn't know what's culturally expected, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Some cultures expect it, some don't, without communication. Diversity, on the other hand, describes unique differences in people. And this chapter is about communication and diversity. Cultural rituals are practices, behaviors, and celebrations. Now, right now in your mind, you can all picture what a birthday party is like. But a birthday party for a 5-year-old is different than a birthday party from a 21-year-old. But you still know what birthday parties are like. But, you know, when I was in Germany, my secretary brought a cake one day to the office. And I said, oh, a cake, what's the celebration? She said, it's my birthday. See, in Germany, you bring a cake for your birthday. In the United States, if I brought a cake for my birthday, everybody would think, what a snob, you know. So different cultures, different practices, different celebrations. The way they celebrated Christmas, they had St. Nicholas and Sinterklaas instead of Santa Claus. And my kids would leave their shoes outside the door, and they would get little presents inside their shoes, building up to Christmas Day. So different places have different rituals that they go by. Cultural awareness is necessary in today's society. We have become a global society, and we deal with people from different cultures all the time. So being aware of these differences and how to deal with these differences and communicate is important for social interaction. Now, there's different types of context, high context and low context. High context is spoken words are less important. You know, you could come up to some of your friends or your family members and say something, and they go, ah, and you understand everything they're saying. I may not have a clue because I'm not in that social culture, that circle. And the high context meaning of what they said meant something to you. Low context, on the other hand, is more about communication. The ambiguous, I'll get this word right in a minute. The ambiguity is left out, is what these words mean, what this communication means. That's what it is. So we are especially in a close-knit family, you have a high context environment. And if you go out into society and you meet all these different people, and it's more low context then because you don't have the inside sequence with all of them. Um, a lot of scholars like to talk about Eastern and Western influence, and I don't really get into that Eastern Western stuff because there's so many differences in each culture in the East and each culture in the West. So I like to describe it like a family and then not a family. We also have cultural value dimensions. They help us to understand the various verbal and nonverbal forms of expression. You and your friends have these ways of communicating. One day, my wife and son and I drove up to the subway, and there was a kid there. And when we drove up, and the first thing he did was this. And it was like, excuse me, I'm going to go ring that little, you don't flip me off. And my son said, oh, Dad, it's a buddy of mine. I said, what? That's a friend of mine. He's just saying hi. I said, well, he needs to learn how to say hi other ways when your parents are around. I don't care how he says hi to you when I'm not here. But, I wasn't aware of that dimension of my son's communication with his friends. And I learned a lot. But cultural value dimensions help us to understand the various verbal and nonverbal forms of expression. We also have individualism and collectivism. Individualism it's about you. It's about me. And this is one I will lean on the Eastern-Western venture with. Most people in the West, U.S. culture and everything else, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, this is what I did. And most in the East, the Asian influence it's more about the family, the group, the business, than it is about you getting your accolades. We have power distance as well. And high power is more rigid and structured. When I was in the Army, it was always went by rank, you know. That's Colonel so-and-so, Sergeant so-and-so, Private so-and-so. It was structured. This person had power, this person didn't have power. I'm a member of Rotary, and everybody in Rotary goes by first name. So I might be sitting at a table chatting with somebody named Frank that's a judge, or somebody named Pete that's a general in the Army. But since we're all there in civilian attire and just our first names, nobody really knows. We don't put that pretense on power. It's a much low power, more equality. We're all equal in there. Uncertainty avoidance. If you want to avoid a lot of certainty, you generally have a lot of rules. High uncertainty avoidance has rules. Low uncertainty avoidance is more flexible. The book talks about showing up. Most restaurants have their time scheduled on the door and this, that, and the other, and you show up and they're not open, and it upsets you because you were certain they were supposed to be open. If you're low level, then it's like, oh, well, I got somewhere else to eat. Masculinity and femininity. They are socially constructed. If you haven't realized that yet, you should. And think about it. When you were little, little boys wear blue and little girls wear pink. We created through society this position for masculine and feminine to be in. Masculine, we tend to look at tendencies like assertiveness and power as masculine tendencies. And as feminine is caring and compassionate. So if a guy is aggressive and he want to get what his way, he's masculine. But if a woman does that, 9 times out of 10, somebody calls her a bitch. Because, that's not feminine. But it's socially constructed. That woman may have been raised by a single father around a bunch of brothers, and she's going to act the way they did to get what she wants. Whereas a guy may have been raised by a single mother around a bunch of sisters, and he may be more compassionate and caring. So it's socially constructed, but it's something we need to understand. Long-term orientation. Long-term orientation is you have a long-term plan, and it's going to be planned out, and you have these steps. Safety is one of those things. You have your safety inspector come through all the time and make sure that all the fire extinguishers are in date and all these other little details. It's long-term, is steady, focused. The work will get done. We'll get to the end. Short-term time orientation is fast results. You got to get this, got to get this, got to get this, got to get done, got to move on to the next one. And it depends on what you're doing. Sometimes it's great to have short-term time orientations. If you're in a group in university and this semester you're put in this group and you have to complete this project, you're going to have to definitely make it short-term because you only have a certain time frame. Cultural competence. It goes without saying really what it is. It's competence, being competent about different cultures. The level of knowledge one has about other cultures is and your willingness to learn about other cultures. I speak a little bit of 5 languages. I'm probably not even fluent in English, but there is a store nearby my house, and this Korean family owned it, and the little old lady, the Korean grandmother, we call her Mama-san, would bag your groceries. She didn't speak any English, but I knew how to say thank you very much, kamsahamnida, in her language. That gave me so much credit at that store because I took the time to thank her in her language, and my grandsons picked up on it. And I thought it was great. Mutual respect and understanding reduces tensions. And I learned a little bit more. I asked on Christmas, I said, how do you say Christmas in Korean? I don't remember now. But I did learn how to say hello, annyeonghaseyo. And so these little things reduced a lot of the misunderstanding and conflict, or can. There's not a whole lot of conflict between me and a grocery store. But you yourself know if you've ever worked in a position where you were doing customer service and you had repeat customers. There's some you enjoyed seeing coming, and there's many more you probably enjoyed seeing leaving. So you need to have that mutual respect and understanding. Cultural imperatives. There's a few of them listed in the book. The first one is peace imperative. Well, what does that have to do with communication? Well, what it has to do with communication is we don't want a war. Let's break it down to the nitty-gritty. A lot of people's differences are culturally based. And a lot of those differences are very deep. A friend of mine teaches at a Christian university. And in one of his public speaking classes, he tells the students, excuse me, find something in the Quran you agree with. And their parents just go ape. They go ballistic. Oh, my child isn't going to read that. And the point is, we're trying to open channels of communication. So if you realize that there's a lot that you agree with and there's very little that you disagree with, it's much better. So a peace imperative. Learn more about whoever your enemy is, and you'll find out that you're not that different. Economic imperative. Globally, we are dependent on one another. And I think it's pretty obvious with the recent pandemic that we had. If you notice, a lot of things we couldn't get because somebody else made them. And, so an economic imperative is we want these things at a decent price, and to get them at a decent price, a lot of times they've got to be made somewhere else. Or even if they're made in the United States, getting them to us was difficult at times. Self-awareness imperative. I really love this particular part of this because the more I told you in the start of this that I wrote my rubber band ball idea from having to do a self-evaluation. I've never done one before. I never looked at myself and found out why I was who I was and where I came from. And once I did this self-awareness evaluation, I understood myself better. And the more that you know about other cultures, the more you know about yourself, really. The more you understand others, the more you can understand yourself. Ethical understanding. What is right and what is wrong? Well, our cultures tell us this is right and this is wrong. I grew up in the South, in Georgia, mostly Texas, some, redneck, macho men, masculinity, and all that other good stuff. Well, I went to another country as a member of the United States Army, and when I met these other men, they kissed me on the cheek. Well, ethically I had to do what was right, and that was be a soldier in the United States Army. I really didn't like strangers kissing me on the cheek, but I was just thankful they didn't kiss me on the lips. But culturally to them, that was appropriate. So it helps you to understand what's right and what's wrong based on other people's perception, how they see the world. They see it from where they stand. Self-awareness, we did that one. Gender differences. Gender differences are socially constructed. I mean, to me, that's all there is to it. Some women are feminine. Some women are masculine. Some men are feminine. Some men are masculine. We're not all the same. If we were all the same, it'd be a boring world. But your understanding of how gender should act is based on the cultural influences you had growing up and in the differences that you met in the world. I was working for the Columbus Cottonmouths, and I was taking a break, and some guy made a pass at me. And I was laughing about it, telling a coworker, my son showed up. He said, "What are you laughing?" I told him, my son, "Did you punch him?" And I said, "Hell no, I didn't punch him. Somebody thought I was attractive." It didn't bother me. I didn't take him up on the offer. But somebody thought I was attractive, so it was like, all right, I'll take that as a compliment. I know many guys that if a guy would have hit on them, there would have been a bloodbath on the spot. Ethnicity and race. A lot of people intermix those two words. But in the communication field especially, race is a biological thing. It is the biology of who you are, your skin color, that type of stuff. Ethnicity, on the other hand, is shared traits. So I met a gentleman from South Africa, and he and I were talking, and he said, "No, I'm African," but he was white, and most people would go, "Huh? What?" And he told me that where he's from, it was accepted. He was African. But when he left there with his English accent or South African accent with a lot of English, a lot of people would not place him as South African because of his skin color. Language differences. Our different languages a lot of times cause confusion. But if you're willing to overlook the differences, you'll find some similarities. When I was in Kazakhstan, I was in a state dinner, and to be very kind to us Americans, they put one of us at each table. Instead of having a table full of Americans so we could talk to each other in English, I was at a table where everybody spoke Russian. I spoke very little Russian, still do. But I wanted to communicate. And so there was a lady sitting next to me, and we started talking. I didn't know the name of a knife, so I picked up a knife, and I said knife, and she told me what it was in Russian. Somebody came up with a deck of cards, and we started going through numbers and king and queen and jack. We were standing on the balcony overlooking the city at a short intermission, and had a glass of wine, and she said Luna. And Luna, and she pointed to the moon. Oh, lunar. Yeah, we call that lunar, you call that Luna. She pointed out, panned her hand like this. She said, neighbor. Neighbor. Neighborhood. Okay. So there was a lot of words that we could figure out if we wanted to. Language differences are only restrictive if you let them be. Religion and spirituality. This is a very tough part of communication for many different people. Many people believe I had a student giving a presentation, a public speaking course, before I put restrictions on it. And his was basically his particular religion. And if you didn't believe in God the way he believed in God, you were going to die and go to hell. There are 5,000 different variations of Baptist in the United States alone. So if they can't all agree what Baptist is, how can we agree on everything else? Some people get greatly offended. Others not so much. When you talk about religion, you need to be open to listen to their perspective, just as they should be open to listen to yours. I love talking about religion. I was a member of a Mormon Boy Scout troop. They don't do caffeine. We went camping. I got up in the morning and made me coffee. And when I was like, you can't do that. I can't. I'm not Mormon. I'm having my coffee. So I learned about Buddhism. I want to go. There's a couple of mosques in Georgia and Columbus. I'd like to go to one of those just to see what their perspective. I want to learn more about it. People with disabilities. If you have looked at the video in my introduction, you know that I am blind. Can't tell, can you? But people with disabilities, sometimes you have to talk to them differently. And sometimes you don't need to talk to them differently. I've had students go, see you tomorrow. Oh, it's okay. You can say the C word around a blind guy. It's all right. I understand. But have you ever talked to somebody in a wheelchair? Did you bother to get a chair or kneel down so you were at eye level? I mean, think about this. How would you like to be stuck in a chair and talking to people's crotches all day long? You need to be aware that there are differences, and sometimes you have to do things differently. If somebody is deaf and they're depending upon reading your lips, if you talk about this all the time, then it's kind of hard for them to read your lips. So think about those things when you're dealing with people with disabilities. Barriers to communication. Oh, there's all kinds of barriers to communication. First one is stereotypes. For some odd reason, in your cultural, social upbringing, you got the understanding that all people of this particular whatever are like this. And they're not. You need to get to know the person and not label them with something. Because most of you probably thought that somebody was blind, couldn't see anything. Well, I'm legally blind. I have tunnel vision. Yes, I'm still blind. I can't drive a car. I can't find things on my desk 90% of the time. There's a lot that I don't see, but I have some vision. So many times at the beginning of the semester when I walk into class on my cane, they all get quiet. And I said, what, you never seen an old guy before? I know, I'm fat, right? And I said, you got a blue hat, she has a pink shirt, and I go, what? Because they see the cane and they automatically assume that I can't see anything. So you need to be careful of stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination. This leads right back to our cultural upbringing. One thing I like about APA style citations is they don't use first names. And they don't use first names because they don't want somebody to say, well, you know, I'm not going to read that article, a woman wrote it. Well, that woman may be the top person in the field that knows more than anybody else. But other people are prejudiced and discriminate against them because of their gender, their race, their national origin, their sexuality. So to overcome these barriers, you have to be careful of that. And I mean, I've done it too. We've all done it. I had a new company commander, and he started speaking. And he said, yeah, y'all just that. And I thought, man, he came from the hills of West Virginia. He doesn't have a split in his family tree. The guy was actually brilliant. He had 2 PhDs. But his language, I immediately assumed that he was uneducated, and it was wrong of me. Ethnocentrism. We're the best. You know, it's good to be proud of where you're from. And it's good to think that your group, your society, your culture is a wonderful thing. But if it gets to a point where we are better than you are, then you're wrong. Point blank. Because there are a lot of people in this world that are better than me. I hope I'm better than many. I don't know. That's for the world to decide. But I've traveled the world enough to know that the American way isn't the only way to do anything. There's all kinds of different ways to do things. And many times we as Americans take those ideas from other people and make them our own. So ethnocentrism, it can be very detrimental. Hate speech. Hate speech, I don't think I have to explain it all to you. I have a brother-in-law that uses 2 terms that I will not repeat on camera, but one of them has to do with a derogatory term about people that are black, and one of them is a derogatory action that is done to a male, and generally, in his quote mind, he refers to guys that like other guys in this term. It drives me up the wall. I can't stand to be around him because he does that. One day I did enjoy turning the tide on him because he introduced me to his partner named Leon. And I said, I'm glad you came out of the closet. Huh? What? I said, well, that's how same-sex couples introduce their significant other as their partner. No. He was all flustered. And Leon was laughing his butt off because every time he said something, I twisted around on him. No, it means we got each other's back. I said, I don't care how you do it. So I combat hate speech as much as I can in those terms. Bullying, Bullying is something that is old as time. I am 61 years old. I got bullied in school because I was a smart kid. People get bullied in school all the time. It's wrong. The bad thing we have now is with, you know, these things right here and computers and bullying can go on 24/7. I mean, luckily when I left school, I left the bullies behind and I didn't hang out with them afterwards. But we don't necessarily have that option anymore. So that's chapter 6. I hope it was helpful. I'm looking forward to y'all's feedback. Thank you much and have a great day.